Jim-Lovell, a name etched in the annals of American space exploration, passed away at the age of 97. Known not only for his historic role in the ill-fated yet triumphant Apollo 13 mission, Lovell's life was a remarkable testament to courage, resilience, ingenuity, and the enduring power of calm under pressure. He died peacefully on Thursday in Lake Forest, Illinois, as confirmed by NASA in an official statement released Friday. In its tribute, NASA reflected on the magnitude of Lovell's contributions to spaceflight and humanity at large. Jim's character and steadfast courage helped our nation reach the moon and turned a potential tragedy into a success from which we learned an enormous amount, the agency said. We mourn his passing even as we celebrate his achievements. Jim Lovell was not just another astronaut. He was one of the pioneers during the space race era, a man who flew to space 4 times during NASA's formative years: Gemini 7, Gemini 12, Apollo 8, and Apollo 13. Few astronauts matched the scope of his experience or the drama that accompanied his missions. Each flight etched Lovell deeper into the collective consciousness of a nation gripped by the dream of space exploration. Born on March 25, 1928, in Cleveland, Ohio, Lovell grew up fascinated by flight. A voracious reader of aviation books, he built model planes as a child and watched in awe as the world of aviation took leaps and bounds in the mid-20th century. Lovell eventually attended the United States Naval Academy, graduating in 1952. He became a test pilot and naval aviator, skills that would later prove invaluable during high-pressure moments in space. At a time when the Cold War had intensified global competition for technological dominance, Lovell's selection into NASA's second group of astronauts in 1962 marked the beginning of a journey that would intertwine his legacy with humanity's quest to reach beyond Earth. His first spaceflight came in 1965 aboard Gemini 7, alongside fellow astronaut Frank Borman. The mission, which lasted 14 days, set a space endurance record. It was a grueling test of human adaptability in space and one that helped NASA better understand the physiological effects of extended space travel. Just a year later, Lovell commanded Gemini 12, a mission critical in proving that spacewalks were indeed viable, a necessary component for future lunar landings. However, it was in 1968 that Lovell truly became a symbol of hope and inspiration. As part of the Apollo 8 crew with Frank Borman and William Anders, he joined the first team to orbit the moon. At a time when America was rocked by political assassinations, the Vietnam War, and civil unrest, Apollo 8 gave the nation something to rally behind. Millions of Americans sat transfixed as Lovell and his crewmates read from the Book of Genesis on Christmas Eve while transmitting images of the moon and Earth. One such photo, Earthrise, a stunning view of our fragile blue planet rising above the lunar surface, became an iconic symbol of unity, humility, and the shared destiny of mankind. Letter writers poured in by the thousands, telling NASA and the astronauts that their mission had brought light during a dark time in American history. Some said that it was Apollo 8 that saved the year 1968 from being remembered solely as a period of despair. For Lovell, that mission was a profound moment. "What I keep imagining," he said at the time, "is if I am some lonely traveler from another planet, what I would think about the Earth at this altitude, whether I think it would be inhabited or not." But if Apollo 8 defined America's ambition, it was Apollo 13 that defined Lovell's legacy. Originally scheduled to be the third lunar landing, the mission was commanded by Lovell and included astronauts Fred Haise and Jack Swigert. Lovell was to be the 5th man to walk on the moon, and everything had gone according to plan until disaster struck. 2 days into the mission, on April 13, 1970, an oxygen tank exploded aboard the service module. The explosion crippled the spacecraft, cutting off vital systems and drastically reducing the crew's chances of survival. Suddenly, a routine mission became a desperate battle for life, unfolding live before the world. The words, "Houston, we've had a problem," though slightly altered in popular memory to "Houston, we have a problem," became a cultural touchstone, symbolizing crisis, resilience, and human ingenuity. In the hours that followed, Lovell's leadership would be tested beyond anything imaginable. With the command module disabled, the astronauts had to use the lunar module as a lifeboat. It was not designed to sustain 3 people for such a prolonged time, nor was it intended to return them safely to Earth. Inside that cramped, freezing space, they rationed power, water, and oxygen while working with engineers back on Earth to improvise solutions on the fly. Duct tape and ingenuity kept carbon dioxide levels from reaching lethal levels. Lovell later described those moments not with panic or despair, but with clarity and calm. In a 1994 interview, he said, "The thing that I want most people to remember is that in some sense it was very much of a success. Not that we accomplished anything, but a success in that we demonstrated the capability of NASA personnel." His humility spoke volumes. The mission had not reached the moon, but it had returned its crew safely against all odds. That, in Lovell's eyes, was the real triumph. The Apollo 13 story captivated the world. People of all ages and backgrounds stayed glued to their televisions and radios as NASA worked around the clock to bring the astronauts home. The public had grown accustomed to space successes, but now they saw the raw fragility of it all. When Lovell and his crew splashed down safely in the Pacific Ocean on April 17, 1970, they were greeted not just as astronauts, but as heroes. That harrowing experience changed Lovell's perspective on life. In a 1999 interview with a NASA historian, he revealed that his brush with death reshaped how he viewed everyday problems. "I don't worry about crises any longer," he said. "Whenever I have a problem, I say, I could have been gone back in 1970. I'm still here. I'm still breathing. So, I don't worry about crises." His story reached new generations when Hollywood turned Apollo 13 into a blockbuster film in 1995. Starring Tom Hanks as Lovell, the movie brought renewed attention to one of NASA's most dramatic missions. It reminded audiences that space travel is not only about glory but also about resilience, improvisation, and survival. Lovell's persona, as portrayed in the film, reflected his quiet, unshakable demeanor. He wasn't the most brash or flamboyant of astronauts, but he had what mattered: leadership, clarity, and emotional intelligence under pressure. Smithsonian historian Roger Launius, who studied and wrote extensively about spaceflight, described Lovell as a very personable, very down-to-earth type of person, who says, "This is what I do. Yes, there's risk involved. I measure risk." That measured approach earned Lovell the respect of colleagues, historians, and the public alike. Aboard Apollo 8 and Apollo 13, Lovell had spent a combined 715 hours, 4 minutes, and 57 seconds in space. It was a record at the time and remained one of the longest until the Skylab missions. For nearly 30 days total, he floated above Earth, gazed upon its oceans and continents, and pondered its significance. While many remember the achievements, the photographs, or the near-death experience, it's easy to overlook how such moments affect a person's inner world. For Lovell, the view of Earth from the vast silence of space was profoundly spiritual. It was a moment that connected him to something far greater. Despite his fame, Lovell never seemed consumed by it. He returned to a relatively quiet life after retiring from NASA and the Navy. He authored a memoir, Lost Moon, which formed the basis for the Apollo 13 film, and occasionally gave talks about leadership, exploration, and risk. But mostly, he enjoyed time with his family. He was married to Marilyn Lovell for over 70 years, and together they raised 4 children. Their love story, enduring the stresses of long separations, the ever-present danger of space missions, and the scrutiny of public attention, was as admirable as Lovell's professional legacy. Even in retirement, Lovell remained a national treasure. Schools, streets, and awards bore his name. His calm, thoughtful demeanor continued to inspire generations of students and engineers. To many, he wasn't just an astronaut, he was a symbol of human perseverance.